Have you ever said, "I already know that," and then wondered why your life stayed the same? Maybe someone gave advice and you thought, "I have heard this before." Perhaps you read a book and skipped parts because you knew the ideas. Or maybe someone tried to teach you, but you stopped listening. You thought you understood. Here is the truth. There is a deep space between knowing words and truly living them. If you feel stuck, even when you know what to do, this story will help you see clearly. Once there was a man who thought he knew everything, until life showed him he knew nothing. Stay with me until the very end. In a land known for smart people and many books, lived a young man named Mark. At 25 years old, Mark had read more books than men twice his age. He could repeat wise words, say poems, talk about deep ideas, and explain hard topics clearly. Everyone in his city knew Mark as the smart one. But there was something else people knew about him. Something they whispered when he left a room. Mark knows everything, except how to listen. When people spoke, Mark would quickly nod, waiting for his chance to talk. When teachers shared wisdom, he would stop them. Yes, I already know that. I read about it. When old people shared life lessons, he would smile politely. He would think to himself, "Old stories, I have heard them all before." His mother would say softly, "My son, knowing the name of a river does not mean you understand the water." But Mark would wave his hand away. "Mother, I have read 17 books about rivers. I understand perfectly." The truth was, Mark's life felt empty. For all his knowledge, he had no peace. For all he read about friends, he had no real friends. People found him tiring. For all he studied about joy, he woke up each day feeling empty. But he could not see the link. He thought, quote 7, he did not see that his 4 favorite words, quote 8, were building a cage around his heart. One autumn day, Mark heard about a skilled gardener. This gardener lived at the edge of the kingdom. People said he could make flowers grow in winter. He could teach trees to make fruit even when it was not the right time. Mark laughed. Quote 9 ___. But his wish to see won. He decided to visit, not to learn, but to show that this gardener was just a normal man with a fame he did not deserve. He found the gardener in a simple garden. The older man was on his knees next to a small pond, moving stones. Mark called out. The old gardener looked up and smiled. Mark frowned. The gardener said kindly, stopping Mark. _15 ___. Mark sat down slowly. The gardener poured tea into Mark's cup. He kept pouring. The tea reached the top. The gardener kept pouring. Tea spilled onto the table. The gardener kept pouring. Tea flowed onto the ground. "Stop!" Mark jumped up. "The cup is full. It cannot hold any more." The gardener put down the teapot. He looked at Mark with soft, knowing eyes. "Yes," he said gently, "just like your mind." The words hit Mark hard. What? What do you mean?" The gardener pointed to the overflowing cup. "You came here full of knowledge, full of books, full of, I already know. How can I pour anything new into a cup that is already spilling over?" For the first time in many years, Mark had no answer. Something inside him broke open. "But I have studied so much. I know so many things." The gardener smiled sadly. "You know about many things, but do you truly understand any of them?" Mark stood there. Tea dripped from the table. He felt something he had not felt since he was a child. confusion, not knowing what would happen, and, deep down, a terrible fear that he had wasted years learning without understanding. "Teach me," he whispered. "Please." The gardener nodded. "First, you must empty your cup." The gardener stood and led Mark through his garden. "I will show you 3 gardens," he said. "Each will teach you the difference between knowing and understanding." They stopped at the first garden. It had beautiful stone signs, perfect tags, detailed pictures carved into wood. "This," said the gardener, "is the garden of knowledge. See how neat it is? Every plant labeled, every fact written down. I could tell you about each flower without ever touching the soil." Mark nodded quickly. "Yes, this is great. Record-keeping, sorting, knowing the theory." The gardener stopped him. "Look closer." Mark looked. The plants were dying. For all the tags and facts, nothing was truly growing well. "Knowledge alone," the gardener said, "is beautiful but dead, like flowers dried and pressed in books, perfect but without life." They came to the second garden. It was a wild place, full of movement. Tools lay everywhere. There was constant digging and planting, a hurried dance of activity. "This," the master said, "is the garden of doing. Just watch." A young helper rushed past them. He moved plants quickly, dug holes without thought, and watered here and there. "He works very hard," Mark said. "Yes, but he does not know why. He copies actions, but he does not truly get the ideas behind them. He is busy, but the garden does not grow well because his actions lack good sense." At last they reached the third garden. Mark was amazed. It looked wonderful. Every plant was strong and healthy. Colors bloomed together in a perfect way. The very air felt alive. "This," the master said, "is the garden of understanding. Here, what you know meets what you do. Ideas become real experiences. Knowing changes into being." The master knelt down and picked up some dirt. "Mark," he said, "tell me, do you know what soil is made of?" "Of course," Mark answered. "Minerals, plant stuff, water, air, things that broke down." "Stop." The master held up his hand. "You know the words. Now close your eyes and put your hands in the soil." Slowly, Mark did what he was told. His fingers went into the cool dirt. "Feel it," the master said. "Not with your mind, but with your hands, with your heart. What does the soil tell you?" Mark wanted to say, "facts," but something made him wait. He truly felt the soil, its feel, how wet it was, how warm, its life. It's alive," he whispered. "I can feel it." "Yes," the master said. "Now you are not just knowing. You are understanding." The master went on. "Mark, you have read about love." "Yes, many books." "Have you felt it?" Silence. "You have read much about peace. Do you have it?" Silence. This is the difference. Knowing the path is not the same as walking on it. Reading about water is not the same as being thirsty and drinking. You can know everything about fire and still freeze to death. For the next 30 days, the master said, I want you to do something hard. Every time you hear a teaching, even one you have heard before, I want you to stop saying, I already know that. Instead, ask yourself, do I live this? Have I truly understood this? Or have I just collected it like a stone in my pocket? He looked straight at Mark. Empty your cup, Mark. Not to pour out the knowledge, but to turn it into wisdom. Mark went home that evening and did something he had not done in years. He said that he did not understand. The next day, a neighbor gave him advice about being patient. His first thought was to say, "I have read about patience. I know about it." But he remembered the master's words. Instead, he asked, quote, 38. Day by day, something changed. He reread books he thought he knew well, but this time he did not just gather facts. He tried to use one idea at a time. Just one. When he read about being thankful, he did not go to the next part. He spent 1 week practicing thankfulness before reading more. When an older person told a story he had heard before, he did not speak over them. He listened as if it was his first time hearing it, and found new meanings he had missed. Weeks went by. People saw the change in him. Mark asked more questions than he gave answers. He listened more than he spoke. He said when he did not understand, and something amazing happened. He began to truly feel peace, not just know facts about it, but feel it. He began to have true talks, not arguments, not lessons. Real connection grew. One day, a young student came to him. "Mark, I have read 12 books about quiet thinking, but I still cannot calm my mind. Can you help?" The old Mark would have said, quote, 39, but the new Mark paused. Quote 40, he said honestly. Quote 41. The student's eyes shone. Someone finally understood his problem. 30 days later, Mark returned to the master's garden. The master was kneeling by the same pond, setting stones. "Master," Mark said, "I understand now. I thought knowing facts was power, but wisdom is power, and wisdom only comes when knowing meets doing, when an idea becomes real, when I know becomes I am." The master smiled. "Now, would you like some tea?" Mark laughed, a happy, real laugh. "Yes, please. And this time, my cup is empty." For the next 7 days, try something new. When you hear a piece of advice, even advice you have heard many times before, do not say, quote 42. Instead, ask yourself, quote 43. Then, pick one thing you know you should do, just one simple thing. For 7 days, actually do it. You do not need to do it perfectly, but do it consistently. Maybe you know you should be thankful. Practice being thankful for 7 days. Perhaps you realize you should exercise. Do it for 7 days. Maybe you know you should call your mother. Call her for 7 days straight. Third, use a beginner's mind. Even for things you are good at, approach them as if you are learning them for the very first time. You will be surprised by what you find. Because when you clear your mind of old ideas, something amazing happens. The same teachings you have heard 100 times will suddenly touch your heart deeply. The same advice that once seemed boring will change your entire life. The same wisdom you thought you understood will finally become a part of who you are. You are not missing facts or information. You are missing a real change. And this deep change only begins when knowledge stops being something you just carry around and starts to become something you truly live. If this message made you see a distance between what you know and how you live, please share it. Someone else might need to hear this too. We all do. Tell me in the comments below, what is one thing you know you should do but have not been doing? Let us help each other move from just knowing things to truly living them. I will return with another story to help you grow. Until then, remember, empty your cup not to lose what you know, but to turn it into true wisdom. The wisest person in any place is not the one who knows the most. It is the one who listens the most.